Hi everyone, my name is Della Phillips. I'm an artist as well as I'm known as the Bicycle Lady. How you doing today? I'm doing great. So if you find this video informative or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Plus also subscribe. There's no charge for that. That way it really helps me out and also lets YouTube know that you like this type of content. Now from this collection on my table, you might be wondering, what are we talking about today? Well, what I'm going to be talking about is the next step of exercises in my steps I'm taking to improve my drawing as well. If you're following along, it can help teach you how to draw and develop your own drawing skills. So let's go over everything. What I'm going to be doing is using citing for artistic rendering. Now you say, oh, last time you were talking about Betty Edwards' book, and if you know her book, one of the steps is that you use the picture plane or viewfinder with a ground on the paper where you would render over like the hand and then pull out highlights. Yes, that is what she has in her book, but I'm not following her book exactly. If you remember back through the steps I've already taken, a lot of those steps weren't in her book, but some were. So what I've been doing, as I said before, is I'm concentrating on the drawn line, not tone and value. Not yet. That's coming. And so the next logical step would be citing. That way it gives you reference points in which when you're drawing and rendering the edges of an item, that you can keep things in a little bit better relationship to each other so they won't look out of proportion. These items, you can simply use all of them, any one of them, for citing, including the hand. You can hold up and get a length with your fingers. Just be sure that this hand plane here is 90 degrees from the bottom plane here, absolute perpendicular, and that you lock your arm, elbow in a particular position. Because if you change the position or change this, obviously that's going to change the length and would vary things and throw things out of relationship to each other. That's one thing. So you could hold up your hand, get the length, and put it down and transcribe that to the paper. Another thing which you'll see illustrations from various artists is to use the end of your brush if you're painting. And you've seen illustrations where they've gone like this or that. Again, you have to hold this perpendicular. And otherwise, again, you will throw things off. Likewise, use a pencil in the same way that you would use the end of a brush. Again, this is perpendicular, exact 90 degrees from this bottom plane when you side a knife, and you keep that consistent. In a similar manner, if you don't want to use a pencil, you have a ruler around, you can just use a ruler the same way that you would use a pencil. Basically, you would side an item. You're not necessarily measuring it, you're just putting the end here, and then you put your finger just like you would with the others, and you can put it down to the paper. Now, let's stick with the ruler family. Here's something that actually Betty does use later on in her book, I believe, if I remember correctly. And this is what's known as an angle finder ruler. They're very cheap, but it's very handy. As you can see, it has two different legs. If you can't find them, you actually can make them by putting two pieces of card or mat together with a screw or pivot point here. But these are cheap, easy to find at least online, possibly also in your local stationery stores and art stores. So again, you hold this perpendicular, your arm is locked in a particular position, and you need to find an angle. Let's say we're looking at this here, and I need to find this angle that this is at. So you put this on the straight horizontal at the bottom, and then you can move, and you can either do it to this line here or here. I usually go here. You find the angle, and look, lo and behold, you have the angle that you can put on to your paper. That way you can get that. So very handy. I think $5 to $10 at most. at least at the time of this filming. Now, these three items are somewhat relative. You probably all recognize this. This is a compass. Now, I believe Hillenberry, which many people like his realistic pencil drawings, uses a compass, and he teaches people that. Only thing he uses the old-fashioned school style. It has a pencil on one end, and it has like a sweeping arm that you move the arm back and forth on. This one is a very basic drafting type compass. It has a screw in the middle that you can adjust, or in this case it does have the fast adjustment where you press these two ends and then you can push and pull on that. And again, you would sight the same way. Okay? Now, the compass is great, but frankly, I like the divider. This is one of the divider. It's a straight divider. There's essentially you would, let's say if we are sighting and this was up there, you would sight with one point here and one point here, and that would get you that length. Of course, again, you're holding it perpendicular to the item. And the reason why I like it is friction. And if you want a pencil point on one end, you can always change out one of these points with a pointed lead. This one here, you might have seen an oil painter class. I believe he's also on PBS. And he has all his students that begins his oil painting classes to get one of these. This is a proportional divider. And it has pivot points, as you can see the holes here. And if you move this with the clip in there, it sets different pivot points. And what that does is it allows you to sight an item, again holding it 90% and have the arm locked and elbow locked in one particular position that you go back to. And then you can sight it here, and depending, if you want to reduce it, you can reduce it, or you can sight with the reduced side and enlarge it. So that's a proportional divider. I believe they're under $15, $12 online or at your local art store. So a handy device. The interesting thing that was came up, if you look at some of the videos on YouTube, that in his classes as they progressed, more and more people, as they progress, stop using the proportional divider. But when he picked up the proportional divider and checked it, it matched. So what this type of sighting does, it helps train your eye and hand, and eventually you'll be able to pretty well get everything in relationship and proportion many times without needing to sight. But it does help to use these to get you practice and get you seeing that way. Alright, now this one here, I've also seen, actually I think Betty Davis had one that, not Betty Davis, but Betty Edwards had one in her kit that didn't have these rules. It was very basic, but it looked similar to this. This is a caliper. This is a cheap plastic caliper. I believe it's under $3 currently. And it's well used. It's a little bit, tiny bit loose. But at any rate, it's still very usable. Again, you can hold it 90 degrees, get your measurement, hold it, and then you can transfer it to the paper. I like using that a fair amount too. And of course, you can always use the picture plane. Again, if you use it as a viewfinder picture plane, it's 90 degrees to the item, keep it in a set position, and then you can line up this as a center line to the item that you're doing, get your measurement to here and here, not necessarily drawing it, and then put it down here. So, those are the items. The items that you currently see on your screen are royalty-free illustrations from the internet concerning sighting, also known as sight measuring. In every illustration, you'll see that you're holding your tool pretty much perpendicular, that you're using sighting. In this example, it's going to be the pencil. If you're using the viewfinder, you want the center line to basically be what you believe to be the center line of the item you're measuring. And you also want to lock your arm and your elbow into a particular position that you can return to if you move it. That way all your measurements will be relative, because if that constantly shifts, that means your vantage point is shifting and your measurements will be off. Here you see a gentleman measuring a cone using this method. The next illustration will show also the measurement of the cone, where you have the arm locked into a particular position. You take the sighting, the height of the cone, and then at the bottom of the illustration you see where the arm and the wrists and the elbows all pretty much locked in the same position. That way you have the same vantage point. And what you're doing is you turn the pencil to where it is now horizontal. Now, one of the things you can do when you check is when you take the measurement, you translate the top one to the paper, come back up with that same measurement, hold it out like you're taking the height, and then that will help you check your vantage point before you turn and take the width. Now, here's another sighting, and it's the sighting of a chair, and you're holding up to get the height, but you're also looking at the angle showed by the dotted lines. Now that gone over the basic principles on how to do sighting and getting reference points on your paper of an object that you're looking at to render or draw, I thought we might just do a basic drawing. Now, I have one camera from the top down, so we'll try to do it this way. I'm going to use this tool here, and as they said, you get a particular point with your arm and your elbow, and you want to keep that constant. Now you can, I got this at a slight slant, you can do various widths by changing the adjustment as long as you keep your arm straight. Or another way is to get a reference point, and then you use multiples of that reference point. So let's see here. How big? I don't think I'm going to do the reference point unit method right now. I'll just do the overall. So essentially we're looking at something about like this. I don't know if you can see the marks. Let me make them darker. Normally I would make them quite light like I first did. Hopefully you can see this. Okay. This is a pencil I got to try out. It's called the Derwent Onyx. I'm not overly thrilled. It's a, they have different, like this is the dark, I think 3 different ones, and it's a good drafting student pencil. Personal preference, I just don't like it. And that's just me. So you all may discover that you do like it. Now here's the shadow level, which would be about here for me. I turned that slightly. Let me turn it back. So I'm just going to put some guide points there, because where the shadow level is, looks like it comes down and starts coming back in again. So let me get the top. It's essentially going to be about here. And that looks to be here. So you're looking at essentially where this comes up. This is not going to be an exact replica of this, but I'm striving to get good practice getting that drawn. Now the other thing is, how far down does this go before you get to there? So I believe that should be here. And if I was going to do a final painting, I would work everything out on not my final paper, which this isn't. This is the Spring Hill Bristol vellum that I have. So I just make multiple marks. I'm just not going to worry with doing a finished drawing with this. Maybe I will, because it's getting a little cluttered up there with the eraser. I think what I want is something like this. And then we have this, some downtrod. Let me take that measurement again. We're probably looking at somewhere here. That goes down a little bit here, back up, and then just going to basically eyeball up. Now, this here, we've got this, and when I see this here, there is a bit of an angle. So there's an angle with this, and I don't have the angle finder, but what I can do is pretty much, I want to get real technical, I could, it does go back up here this way. I got a point about there. Like I said, it's not super exact, but let's see. I'll take that measurement. Let's do it that way. Now I could have extended this line here, out here, and basically sided this here. And I would say, if we look here, versus how much it is to go back there, that would give you your angle, which is probably close to a 30-degree angle if my eye still stays true. So what I can do is take this, put this on the bottom, and then this top part would be over here. So when I put it on the paper, be careful not to jostle this. I may have to come up with a way of making that a little less free and sliding. It's a bit worn, but that's okay. So, since I know this end, I can pretty much it's a little funky. So I want to like I said, sighting is not the end-all be-all, but it does get you in the ballpark of where to put things. You still need to work some things out. Gives me a little bit here. Tyrannus is being distracting to me. And a little bit here. here. Up and back down. Yeah. Then you could start, putting in your values or colors. But this gets you the basic shape, and I did this very quickly. Normally I would take probably twice this amount of time. But it does get you the basic shape of the pear. And at this point in time, then you could transfer this to good paper, or just work it more just for practice, which is probably... And let me show you, with all these extra lines, let me erase that. Does it look like a pear? And I think it does. It does give a good representation and proportion of the pear I'm looking at, with just a little bit of minor changes, which is to be expected. Because I'm not tracing it, I'm not doing a grid technique. And a grid technique does take a fair amount of time to do. But you've got the basic shape and proportion of a good pear to start working from, to possibly, when we get into tonal values, we'll redo this, and then you can start seeing the shapes either through active contour line, or we could start putting in negative shapes as well. So that's sighting. I think I'm going to do some more practices. So going forward, I'm going to be doing sighting with very simple objects to begin with, like this pear. I also have a artificial apple, which I'm going to be doing. And the nice thing is you can do all types of positions. Like maybe we'll do like this, and you see all the bottom in a shadow with additional, well, let me turn it up for you. You see the bottom, even though it's not exact, it would probably be a little bit rougher here. But it does give you different shapes there, and a different way to look at it. Or you can look at it from just straight on here, which for me would be this way. Or you can look at it this way, which would be close to what I drew here, if you were looking at it straight up and down. So I've got an apple as well, so it's a fake Red Delicious. So, or this season you can get some nice, wonderful fresh apples, do your drawing, and then have a snack. That's an added bonus. So do that. Cezanne did that a lot with oranges and fruits that he would buy to use as models, and then his family would feast on them, so to speak, at that point in time. If you have any questions about doing sighting, let me know. Suggestions for possible improvements. I would love to hear from you. I will promptly respond to all comments. So until next time, I'll see you later. And please hit the subscribe button. It really helps. You have a good day.